Hey, what's up, friends? Welcome back to Babel on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf I of Masechta Yoma, which of course is Daf 70. Good Daf, Chaver, good Daf. It's not going to be like yesterday, interesting, famous Agarita, it's not that. But it's just a good Geshmak Daf, some nice sugyas. So at the beginning we discuss some halachas about reading multiple sefer Torahs, which is very interesting. And then we get to a new Mishnah, going weiter in the avoda of Yom Kippur. This feels like, who was I talking to recently? Uncle Panim. There's this book, I don't think I actually ever read the whole thing. I think I was supposed to read the whole thing when I was in high school. But the book, I think, For Whom the Bell Tolls, is that it? Isn't it just like the entire book is just about like this one day? So it's like the whole Masechta is just like progressing through this day of Yom Kippur. So we're then going to read the new Mishnah, which now continues once he's completed his Avodah Lefnai V'Lefnim, moves on to doing the Olas of Olas Ha'am. We get to Machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer about when you do certain korbanos, which is interesting Machlokas, and that kind of takes us throughout the rest of the daf. Some interesting opinions there. So let us begin the top of Daf Ayin. V'gol Sefer Torah v'chulei, the second line of the Daf. V'chol kach lama k'dei shelo lahotzi la'az al Sefer Torah. Right, the Mishnah had said that after the Kohen Gadol reads from Parshas Achremos and Parshas Emor, which are both found in Sefer Vayikra, he then reads the psukim about the Musafin, which are in Sefer Bamidbar, and he reads those by heart. He doesn't read them from the Torah. So before he reads those psukim by heart, he says, by the way, Chevre, everyone should know that there's more written in this scroll that I'm not reading. And then he proceeds to read by heart. Why does he have to make the disclaimer before he reads by heart that there's more things written in this scroll? So, Kedei Shelo Lo Tzilaz al Sefer Torah, so nobody should chas v'shalom think that this particular scroll is missing anything. So he clarifies, no, this particular scroll is not missing anything. I'm just reading by heart. Now, the question is why? Why doesn't he just roll it? How come? Niglo v'nikre. Let him push it, roll the Sefer Torah to Parshas Pinchas, and then read from inside. Why say it by heart? Now, we had learned at the end of the day yesterday that Lamai said, it would have to be the same Indian. Maybe you could argue that it's the same Indian, fine. But he would have to be able to roll from Parshas Emor to Parshas Pinchas before the Meturgeman finishes translating, which, I don't know, might be a little bit ambitious. But Akopanim, the Gemara says, that we don't roll the Sefer Torah in the tzibor because of the kvod tzibor. And maybe that's basically really the same thing that we were saying yesterday. Maybe we said yesterday that you can only roll from one inyan to another inyan if it's before the Meturgeman finishes speaking. And maybe the reason why is because if he finishes translating while you're still rolling, well then it's not kvod tzibor that everyone should just sit there waiting while you're rolling. And for that reason, the Kohen Gadol reads the psukim from Parshas Bamidbar by heart. So why don't we just bring a second Sefer Torah? Alright, I'm sure many of us have been to the synagogue before on a Shabbos. There were two Sefer Torah. We're going to see an example of this in a minute. Right? Maybe it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh or something, so you read from the Parshas Shavua, and then you have another Sefer Torah that you read the Mafter from Rosh Chodesh, whatever it is. So how come the Kohen Gadol needs to read by heart? Why not just bring another Sefer? So Rav Huna bar Yehuda Amar Mishum Pagam Mosharishon V'Shlakasham Mishum Bracha Sheina Tzricha. So Rav Huna bar Yehuda says that if you bring another Sefer Torah, so then it looks like there's something wrong with the first one. Right? So, meaning if the Kohen Gadol would read from one Sefer Torah, from Achremos and Emor, and then he brings out another Sefer Torah for Parshas Pinchas. So the question is, wait, what's wrong with the first one, the Yentis? the Yentis in the Beis HaMikdash, they say, what's wrong with the first one? What was the problem? What was the problem? Right, yeah. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. So Rish Lakish Mishum Baruch Hashem Etzricha. Whereas Rish Lakish says that, well, if he brings out another sefer, he's going to have to make another bracha. And there's no need to really make another bracha. And therefore, to prevent that, we just say, look, read it by heart. Umichashin and lefgama. Fact the Gemara, 1 second. Is that really something that we're concerned about? That if you bring out an additional sefer Torah, all of a sudden, memele, we're concerned that the yentis are going to say, wait, what was wrong with the first one? V'amar b'yitzchak nafcha. Rosh Chodesh Teves Chalios b'Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh Teves, of course, the Rosh Chodesh of Teves always falls out in the middle of Chanukah. Chanukah starts at the beginning of Kislev. So Mevin Shalosh Torahs v'Korin. So if it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Teves, which happens l'maisa, often enough, right? How do you know? Because we all know that benching. Alanisim, Yala v'Yavo, and Ritzei. It's a serious benching. So, it happens. And when Rosh Chodesh Teves falls out on Shabbos, so we bring 3 Sefer Torah L'maisa. V'korin achas b'nyan shel yom. So one, we're going to read the Parshas HaShavua, which mistam is Parshas Miketz, which of course is my bar mitzvah parsha, of course. V'achas shel Rosh Chodesh, and then you have another Sefer Torah for Rosh Chodesh, v'achas shel Chanukah, and 1 Sefer Torah to read the Torah portion for Chanukah. So we see that there is no problem bringing out 3 Sefer Torah, and we're not concerned that the Yentis are saying, wait, what's wrong with the first 2? So Tlas Agava b'Tlas Sefer Leka Pagama, Chagava b'Trei Sefer Ika Pagama. The Gemara says, well, the difference is that on Rosh Chodesh Teves, that falls out on Shabbos, we bring out 3 Sefer Torah, it's 3 different people for, right, it's a different person per Sefer Torah. So therefore there's no issue of Pagam. It's clear that, we're bringing a different Sefer Torah, a different person. It's a whole new experience. However, if you have the Kohen Gadol reading from 1 Sefer Torah and then reading from another Sefer Torah, the Yentis, they say, wait, what was wrong with the first one? We don't want any of that. So we just recommend that the Kohen Gadol read the Psukim for Parshas Bamidbar, Sefer Bamidbar, Parshas Pinchas, by heart. Muvarech Aleh Shmona Brachis, and then he blesses 8 brachis. Taner Rabbanon. The rabbis taught ala Teire Kederech Shemvarchim Beveis HaKnesses. So a blessing on the Torah, like we bless in the Beis HaKnesses. Okay, fine. But is that a reference? What to the maybe Birkas HaTorah before and afterwards? Is it referring to like after the Haftorah when we say ala Torah v'ala Avoda? I don't know. Not clear to me. Let's say it's Birkas HaTorah. So now these are psukim I think in the Shmona Esrei, right? Al avoda I think is Ritzei, Al avoda is Modim, B'Mechilas Ha'avon, bracha about Yom Kippur, Ketikna, like we do in davening. V'al HaMikdash b'fnei atzmo, separate bracha for the Beis HaMikdash, v'al HaKohanim b'fnei atzmon, separate bracha for the Kohanim, v'al Yisrael b'fnei atzmon, and on the Yidden, on their own, they get their own bracha, v'al Shar Tefillah, and the rest of the Tefillah. Taner Rabbanon Shar Tefillah. What is this other prayers? Rina tchino v'akashu milfanecha al amcha Yisrael, right? Please God for your nation Israel, shetzrichin hivasha, that they need to be saved. V'chosim b'shomei tefillah, and then he says Baruch atah Hashem shomei tefillah. V'achar kach kol echad v'echad mevi sefer Torah mibeisa v'koribo k'dei laharis chazus l'rab. You hear that? It's very interesting. Again, v'achar kach, then afterwards, after the Kohen Gadol is done, so kol echad ve'echad maybe sefer Torah mibeis. So everybody brings a sefer Torah from their house. Now, as Rashi points out, they don't bring it on Yom Kippur. They had already brought it from the day before. But everyone else had their own sefer Torah. V'korebo, and they read from their own sefer Torah to show their sefer Torah in public, as Rashi says, "B'rovam zakelim aveyu," right? That we want to glorify God with beautiful things like beautiful Sefer Torah, and everyone has their own Sefer Torah and they're reading from it, and it sounds like it was probably a very interesting, cool, I don't know what the word is, probably maybe impressive sight, everyone reading their own Sefer Torah. So the Mishnah had said that somebody who is observing the Sefer Torah, the Kohen Gadol, when he's reading from the Sefer Torah, would be unable to observe the fellow taking the Sarah Mishtaleach out to the cliff, and vice versa. Somebody observing the Sarah Mishtaleach. I'm sorry. It was the burning, I believe. Sorry, right. You wouldn't be able to watch the Par V'Sarah and Esrafin if you were observing the Kohen Gadol, and vice versa. If you're observing the Par V'Sarah and Esrafin, so then you wouldn't be able to observe the Kohen Gadol. Now, why? So the Gemara the Mishnah says, well, not because you're not allowed to, just that practically speaking, they were in two different places. You can't be in two places at once. Now, the Gemara Pshita. Well, obviously, yeah, it's true. You can't be in two places at once. What I may have had to say, Pshita, that there isn't anything memela wrong with seeing both, just that the fact of the matter is, you can't be in two places at once. But why does the Mishnah have to point out that there's nothing wrong with it? There's nothing halachically wrong with observing, both of them, just you can't be in the same place at the same time. So, Ma'adetema may have talked to Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says that you're not allowed to pass over on mitzvahs, and therefore I may have had the thought to say that if you're watching the Kohen, then your would not be allowed to go and watch the Par V'Sarah and Esrafin, and vice versa. So my mitzvah, brava madras melech kamashma. What would be the mitzvah that you would not be allowed to pass over? Brava madras melech, that the glory of the king is when there's lots of people around, and therefore, I might think that if you are observing the Kohen Gadol, so stay there because of you want to keep the glory of the king by being present. Don't then pass over that opportunity to go and watch the Par V'Sarah and Esrafim, and vice versa as well. If you're watching Par V'Sarah and Esrafim and you're creating a crowd over there, don't leave that in order to watch the Kohen Gadol. And it says the Mishnah, and as clarified by the Gemara, that technically there would not be any problem of Brava Madras Melech over here, and you would technically, halachically, be able to go from one to the other, but you can't watch both at the same time because of the physical limitations of being in two places at the same time. Says the Mishnah in Big Day Butz Kore. So if the Kohen Gadol, I think as we said in the previous Mishnah, that the previous Mishnah said that if the Kohen Gadol wants, he could continue wearing the Big Day Lavan that he wore Lefnai V'Lifnim. If he wants, he could switch clothing to his own kind of white tunic. So now, it says the Mishnah over here in Big Day Butz Kore, so if he chooses to read from the Sefer Torah in his linen garments that he wore Lefnai V'Lifnim, Kiddush Yadav V'Raglav, so then what he does is, after reading from the Sefer Torah, he washes his hands and feet, Pashad Yared V'Taval, he then removes his Big Day Lavan, goes to the mikvah, Olav and Estapik, dries off, Evilo, Big Day Zav, and now he puts on his gold garments, finally. So we have concluded the avoda of the Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur, Lifnai V'Lifnim, at least part one. And now he's moving on and putting back on his Big Day Kohen Gadol, Shmona Begadim, Big Day Zav, and continuing with the service. V'lavash v'kidesh adav v'raglav, he puts on the Big Day Zav, and then he washes his hands and feet, v'yatzav v'asas elo v'seloam, and then he goes out and he offers his ram as well as the ram of the nation. V'shivas kvasim t'mimim b'neshana de Rebbe Eliezer, and Rebbe Eliezer says that along with the elo ve'elaam, his ram ola and the ram ola of the nation, says Rebbe Eliezer that along with that he also offers the 7 sheep of the musafin. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Akiva im tamid shel shachar are you craving? Says Rabbi Akiva, and the Gemara is going to clarify this a shtickle, but we'll choose one mahalach over here. Says Rabbi Akiva that actually the korban musaf was offered together with the tamid shel shachar. And therefore, by this time, he had already offered these 7 sheep. Ufara ola v'sara anaisa b'chutz, and the cow of ola, and the chatas goat that was part of the musafin as well. Hayu krevenim tamid shel ben arbaim would be offered with the tamid shel ben arbaim. Kidishad v'raglav ufashat v'yarad v'tavav olav v'nistapeg. So then after he was done with these avodas that would be done in the Bigdei Zav, he would then once again do Kiddush Yadayim v'raglaim, go to the mikvah, dry off, hevilo Bigdei Lavan. They would once again give him his white garments that he would wear lifnai v'lifnim v'lavash v'kidishad v'raglav, and he would put them on. And then once again, of course, after putting on the Bigdei Lavan, he would do Kiddush Yadayim v'raglaim, nichnas lo tzei sakaf v'samachta. Then he would go back into the Kodesh Kodashim, remove the spoon and the pan from the incense. He then did Kiddush Yadayim v'raglaim again, removed the Bigdei Lavan, went into the mikvah, dried off. Hevila Bigdei Zahav, they brought for him once again the Bigdei Zahav. V'lavash v'kiddush Yadav v'raglav, he put on the Bigdei Zahav, he then did Kiddush Yadayim v'raglaim again. V'nichnas lahaktir Torahs Rabbeinu Arbaim, and then he continued, went weiter with the daily kind of things. He offered the afternoon Torahs, mulei tivisaneros. The Gemara is going to explain, meaning to light the menorah, the Kiddush Yadav v'raglav, and then after this, he would once again do Kiddush Yadayim v'raglaim, ufashat, and take off the Bigdei Kahuna, the Bigdei Kohen Gadol, Heviulo Bigdei Atzmo, he now got his jeans and his t-shirt, V'lavash, and he put them on, Umalavin Oso Ad Beso, and they would escort him back to his house, V'yomtiv Aya Oselo Havav, B'shosh Yotza B'shalom Min HaKodesh, and he would make a big yomtiv for all of his friends, when he exited the Beis HaMikdash in peace and Givaldik. Very, 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 very cool. So, what's the Gemara going to talk about now? I mean, he's basically done, but we're not done with Masechta Yoma. We still have like another 2.5 weeks. So what are we going to do now? I don't know. Okay, very interesting. So now the Gemara is gonna go, delve into the machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. It's an interesting machlokas because it talks about a few things. It talks about kilu when the Kohen Gadol is done with the avodah lifnai v'lifnim. So when the Kohen Gadol is done with the avodah lifnai v'lifnim, so then what happens next, right? He takes off his Bigdei Lavan, he puts on the Bigdei Zahav, and what does he do? What does he do at this point? There's the Olaso Ba'olasa'am, there's what exactly happens? So we see a bit about what exactly happens, and we also see about the Korban Musaf, right? Like where does the Korban Musaf of Yom Kippur fit in? So, some technical, just like a few more pieces that need to fall into place. So the Gemara starts with a kasha. They ask the kasha, Eichi ka'amar, how, what is Rabbi Akiva saying? What does that mean? Im tamat shel shachar ha you craven, right, so Rabbi Eliezer had said that together with the olaso va'olasa'am, you would also offer these 7 sheep, these 7 musaf sheep. Now, we're going to see in a minute that actually, that doesn't seem to be the case with Rabbi Eliezer, but for now the Mishnah had said that with the olaso va'olasa'am, Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that he offers 7 musaf sheep. Rabbi Akiva had responded, no, those 7 musaf sheep were already offered with the Talmud Shel Shachar. He then continues and says, and that the Par Ha'ola and the Saira Naisa B'chutz are offered with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. So now the Gemara wants to know, Im Talmud Shel Shachar you craven, is Rabbi Akiva saying that the 7 sheep were offered with the Talmud Shel Shachar, Ufar Ha'ola v'Saira Naisa B'chutz and Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim, and that the Par Ha'ola and the Saira Naisa B'chutz, which were also part of the Musaf, were offered later on with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. O Dilmor, maybe what he's saying, Hachi Ka'amar, Im Talmud Shel Shachar you craven Ufara Ola Ba'adayu. Maybe what Rabbi Akiva is saying is that in the morning with the Talmud Shel Shachar would be offered the 7 Musaf sheep as well as the Para Ola, V'Sara Naisa B'chutz Im Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. Whereas the Sara Naisa B'chutz was offered later on with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. V'Su and more so. Para Ola Rabbi Eliezer, the Shaire, Emas Avile. Now Rabbi Eliezer, so he had said, so with the Olasu v'Olasa'am, he offers the 7 Musaf sheep. What about the Para Ola? And as Rashi points out, what about the Sair Hanaisa B'chutz? When does Rabbi Eliezer offer these things? These korbanos. V'su and another kasha, Ben Rabbi Eliezer, Ben Rabbi Akiva. Emorichata Emas Avilu. Both according to Rabbi Eliezer and according to Rabbi Akiva, when do you offer the emurin of the par v'sara anaisa bifnim, right? Because we had said in an earlier Mishnah that you take the emurin, the parts that go on the mizbeach for the par and sara anaisa bifnim, and you put them on this like silver tray, on this magis, on this tray, and then we said that we're gonna burn them later. So when do we burn those? So you have a few kashas. Amarava says Rav lo mishkachas la maskanta ela, or the Rabbi Eliezer the Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, no, the Tana de Shmuel, oh, the Rabbi Akiva b'te Tosefta. Says Rava, look, the way to understand Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer is through a certain Tana de Shmuel and a certain Tosefta. The Tana de Shmuel, what is this Tana de Shmuel? Rabbi Eliezer Omer says Rabbi Eliezer, Yotzo ve'osa elo ve'elaam ve'emure chatas. You hear that? So says the Tana de Shmuel that after doing the avoda lifnai ve'lifnim, he then changes into his big day zav, and he then offers the elo ve'elaam, his ram and the ram of the nation, ve'emure chatas, and that is the time that he offers the emure chatas, the parts of the chata, the par v'sar shanaisa b'fnim. That is when he offers the parts that go on the mizbeach. Aval para ola v'shivas kvasim v'sar anaisa b'chutz. But all of the korban, all the musaf offerings, the 7 sheep, the para ola, the sara anaisa b'chutz, all of those im tamat shel ben arbaim, all of those are going to be offered later with the afternoon service. Rabbi Akiva, the Tosefta Mai, what's his Rabbi Akiva and the Tosefta? The Tanya is we learn in the Brayso Rabbi Akiva Omer. Para ola v'shivas kvasim, that the para ola and the 7 sheep, and I believe as well as the Sara Naisa B'chutz. No, that's not true. That is not true. The para ola and the shivas kvasim, which are the korban musaf, im tamat shel shachar you craven, would be offered with the tamat shel shachar. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, milvad ola saboka shel ola satamid. That in general, when it comes to the korban musaf, in general, when it comes to shalosh regalim, right, the korban musaf, right? Of course, everybody knows milvad ola saboka shel ola satamid. Tasu es ele ka'ele. I wonder why that ka'ele is so. Everyone knows that ka'ele. So it says when it comes to the korban musaf in general that you do it milvad ola saboker, aside from the morning ola, from which we learn out that the korban musaf is offered together with the tamat shel shachar, and therefore says Rabbi Akiva that the musaf of Yom Kippur is no different than the musaf of any other Yom Tiv, and therefore the 7 sheep and the para ola, which are musaf offerings, are offered with the tamat shel shachar. And then of course after the tamat shel shachar he does the service of the day, lifnai v'lifnim. And then after he does the service inside, he puts on his big day zav, sara anaisa b'chutz. Then he offers the sara anaisa b'chutz. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, seir izim echad chatas milvad chatas hakipurim, that you offer a goat as a korban chatas in addition to the korban chatas that you already offered lifnai v'lifnim. Okay, so therefore when he's done with the avodah lifnai v'lifnim, he does this additional chatas goat, the sara hanaisa b'chutz, ve'achar kach elo ve'elaam, afterwards his ram and the ram of the nation, ve'achar kach emuri chatas, and after that he burns the emurim of the korban chatases of the par v'sar lifnai v'lifnim, and then he changes into his white garments, takes out the kaf v'machta from the kodesh HaKadoshim, changes back into his gold garments, v'achar kach tamat shel ben arbaim, and he then offers the tamat shel ben arbaim. Fine. Very good. Very, very good. So, the big difference, I would say, between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva right now is that Rabbi Eliezer says that you basically offer the korban musaf with the tamat shel ben arbaim at the end of the day, whereas Rabbi Akiva says that you offer the korban musaf in the morning. In the morning, with the tamat shel shachar, you offer the korban musaf. One exception being the sa'ir anaisa b'chutz, which is offered right after the avodah lifnai v'lifnim based on a pasuk. Fine. Now, my time is Rabbi Eliezer. How come Rabbi Eliezer says that the Korban Musaf on Yom Kippur is offered with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim? Ovid Kidichsiv? Because Rabbi Eliezer sticks to the order that they are found in the Torah. Because after all, you have Parshas Achremos in Sefer Vayikra, which talks all about the Avoda, Lefnai V'Lefnim. And the Korban Musaf is written in Parshas Pinchas, which is in Sefer Bamidbar. So you have the Avoda Lefnai V'Lefnim, the Avodas Yom Kippur in Sefer Vayikra, and then only later in Sefer Bamidbar do you have the discussion of the Musaf. And therefore, Rabbi Eliezer argues that it makes sense to say that first you do the Avoda Lefnai V'Lefnim, the Avodas Yom Kippur, and only afterwards with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim do you offer the Musafin. Right? Ovid Kedichsev, he doesn't like the order that it's written in the Torah. Ovid Beresh the Torahs Kohanim, but other Ovid the Chumash HaPikudim. First, he says that the Avoda from Sefer Vayikra is performed, i.e., the Avodas Yom Kippurim Lefnai V'Lefnim, and only later the Korban Musaf, which is found in Sefer Bamidbar. Rabbi Akiva, Kidiktani Taimo, and Rabbi Akiva, like he basically already explained this reasoning in the Tosefta, which is Milvad Olas Abok Asher Lolas Atom. That in general, when it comes to Korban Musaf, the Korban Musaf is generally offered after, right, or together with the Talmud Shel Shachar. So Am Musafim and Talmud Shel Shachar Avadu. So in general, we do the Korban Tamid, the Musafim with the Korban Tamid, and therefore you offer those with the Talmud Shel Shachar. The only exception being the Chatas, the Sarah Naisa B'chutz, that is done right after the Avoda Lefnai V'Lefnim, also enough from a pasuk. Rabbi Eliezer hay milvad chatas hakipurim ha'avalei. So what does Rabbi Eliezer do with this pasuk of milvad chatas hakipurim? Rabbi Akiva, of course, learns out that it means that you do the Sarah Naisa B'chutz immediately after the Avoda Lefnai V'Lefnim. What does Rabbi Eliezer do with it? So that's needed for a drasha that from Masechta Shavuos, that to teach about what the korban is mechaper for. It has to do with Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav. If there was a yediyah, any yediyah batchila, a yediyah basof, whatever, for a technical reason, that he learns it out like we learn in a Gemara in Shavuos about what the Sarah Naisa B'chutz is mechaper for. Fine. So something separate he learns out from it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishma. Okay, period. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishma says Rabbi Yehuda in explaining Rabbi Akiva. So we had explained Rabbi Akiva until now that all 7 of the sheep from the Korban Musaf on Yom Kippur, according to Rabbi Akiva, would be offered with the Talmud Shel Shachar in the morning. Now we're going to see a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon in explaining Rabbi Akiva a shtickle different. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo says Rabbi Yehuda in explaining Rabbi Akiva, who of course was his Rabbi Akiva was Rabbi Yehuda's Rabbi, Echad Karev im Talmud Shel Shachar, V'shisham Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim. You hear that? Rabbi Yehuda explains that according to Rabbi Akiva, actually only one of the 7 sheep were offered with the Talmud Shel Shachar, but the other 6 were offered with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim. Because that way it could be Mekayim, both of them, right? You Mekayim the, right, Milvad Olas Aboka Asher Olas Atamid, that we want to offer the Korban Musaf together with the Talmud Shel Shachar, but at the same time we also want to preserve the order that they're written in the Torah, which is the Avoda of Yom Kippur first in Sefer Vayikra, and then the Musafin in Sefer Bamidbar. So therefore, says Rabbi Yehuda, to preserve both, actually Rabbi Akiva's opinion would be that you offer one of the 7 sheep of the Musaf with the Talmud Shel Shachar, and the other 6 with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Omer Mishmo, Shisha Kraven im Talmud Shel Shachar ve'echad im Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon explains in the name of Rabbi Akiva that actually 6 would be offered with the Talmud Shel Shachar, and one of them would be offered with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim. My Tamayu D'Rabbanan, how come Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon assume that we divide up the the sheep into two groups. So Trey Krai Ksive. Well, because we have two psukim. Ksiv Milvad Olas Haboker. Well, because one pasuk says that we want to offer the korban musaf together with the Talmud Shel Shachar. Uksiv Yatzav Asa Esolaso. That the Kohen Gadol, after doing the avodah lefnai v'lefnim, he goes out and he does his olah and the olah of the nation. We want to say that that is a reference to the musaf. So we see that the musaf is actually done after the avodah Yom Kippurim, and therefore we have two psukim that we want to satisfy. One is to say that the musaf is done with the Talmud Shel Shachar like it's always done, whereas another pasuk is saying that the musaf would be done after the avodas lefnai v'lefnim. Hilkachav minayu achu minayu achu. Therefore, you do part of the korban musafs with the Talmud Shel Shachar and part with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. But my cometh, okay? How come Rabbi Yehuda says you do one with the Talmud Shel Shachar and 7 with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim and 6 with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim? And Elazar Reb Shimon says you do 6 with the Talmud Shel Shachar and 1 with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. Rabbi Yehuda savar avid chad kidichsim milvad olas haboker v'hadar avid avodas hayom. So says Rabbi Yehuda that he first does 1 of the 7 sheep from the musaf with the Talmud Shel Shachar and then moves on to the avoda of Yom Kippur. Because we don't want the Kohen Gadol to get tired from slaughtering 6 sheep already right off the bat before he even gets to the avoda of Yom Kippur, which is obviously much more important than the korban musaf. So therefore Rabbi Yehuda says, look, just offer 1 of the sheep so you can be offering it with the Talmud Shel Shachar and then move on. You'll get back to the other 6 later. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Savar came the Aschil Ovid Shisha Dilma Pasha. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says, no, once already he's working with these sheep, let him offer the maximum that he can right now, which is 6 of them. So that we know that after he's done with the avoda of Yom Kippur, he won't make a mistake and neglect to offer any of them, right? Meaning, if you only offer 1 of them, maybe he'll make a mistake after the avoda of Yom Kippur and he'll only offer, let's say, 1 more and he'll forget to offer 5 of them. Just do, once already you're starting, do the maximum, get them done with. And then after avodas Yom Kippur, you just have 1 more to do. Well, the guy avodas hayom, zarisu. And in terms of the avodas hayom, that Rabbi Yehuda was concerned that maybe he'll get tired, if he's going to use all of his strength to do the 6 of the 7 musafs in the morning, sheep in the morning, so he'll be tired for the avodas Yom Kippur. Says Elazar Reb Shimon, that's not really a concern. For the avodas Yom Kippur, it's once a year. Lefnai v'lefnim, kodesh kodashim. He's got plenty of energy for that. Now the Gemara says that both Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda seem to be assuming that when it says v'yatzav asa es olaso v'es ela'am, that's a reference to the korban musaf, which means that there's really only 1 ayil, there's only 1 ram when we're talking about Yom Kippur, meaning when the pasuk when the Torah in Sefer Bamidbar talks about a ram on Yom Kippur, it's the same ram as it talks about in Sefer Vayikra that after the avodah lefnai v'lefnim he offers a ram. Kiman, who's that like? Ki Rebbe. The Tana is learning the Brayso. Rabbi Omer says, Rebbe, El echad ha'amur kan hu ha'amur b'chumash ha'pikudim. That says, Rebbe, that the ram that's referenced in Sefer Vayikra is the same ram that's referenced in Sefer Bamidbar. There's only 1 ram. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Omer Shnei Elim Hein, whereas Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says that there are taka 2 rams. They're 2 separate rams. There's one in Vayikra and another one in Parshas, in Sefer Bamidbar. My time at the Rebbe. How come Rebbe says it's the same ram? Tichsiv echod, as the pasuk says. Echod, I believe in Chumash HaPikudim in Bamidbar. For Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, my echod miyuchad shebidro. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says no. Echod doesn't mean that it's only 1 ram for Yom Kippur, but there's 2, but that it has to be particularly awesome. Rebbe says no. I know that it has to be an awesome ram from the fact that we have a pasuk somewhere else by nedarim, by optional voluntary offerings. It says mivchar nedarecha. It has to be the choicest. For Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, chad b'chov v'chad b'nedav u'tzricha. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says no. Those that pasuk of mivchar nedarecha is in the context of a voluntary offering. To say that the voluntary offerings need to be very good and high quality. because you shouldn't say, well, it's just a voluntary offering, it doesn't have to be the highest quality. No, it does. And then we also needed it to say by the Ram of Yom Kippur, echad, to say that it should also be of particularly high quality, because it is an it's an obligation to offer this, and therefore it needs to be of high quality. That was daf ayin. It was a cool daf, right? Like some interesting sugyas, nothing too hard, just enough to like get the gears rolling. I thought it was cool. Anyways, at the first part of the daf, we talked about taking out different sefer Torah. We asked, how come the Kohen Gadol reads from Sefer Bamidbar by heart? And we said, well, because we don't want people to think that there was some kind of issue with the Sefer Torah. We said, why don't you just bring out another one? So we had two possibilities. One is that, well, people might think that there was something wrong with this first Sefer Torah. The other possibility was that, well, then he would have to make another bracha, and we don't want him to have to make two brachas for no reason. We explained that when it comes to, let's say, for example, Rosh Chodesh Teves, that falls out on Shabbos, so we bring out 3 Sefer Torah. The reason why we're allowed to bring out 3 Sefer Torah, we're not concerned, like we said a minute ago, that maybe there's an issue with one of the Sefer Torah, is because when you bring out 3 Sefer Torah on Shabbos, because it's, the Parshas HaShavua, and also Rosh Chodesh, and also Chanukah, for example, well, you're going to have 3 different people reading from each of the Sefer Torah, and therefore it's clearly 3 separate things, and it's clear that that we're not bringing out another one because there was a problem with the first one, but because it's 3 separate inyanim. We then moved on. We got to a new Mishnah where we've completed the Avodas Hayom of Yom Kippur, and now, the Avodah L'fnai V'Lefnim, and now we are moving on. We get up to is Ola and the Ola Sa'am. So we saw a machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that after doing the Avodah L'fnai V'Lefnim, he then puts on his big day Zahav, his golden garments, and he offers his ram and the ram of the nation, which is a korban Ola, and at that point he also burns the Emure Par V'Sar Shenaise Bifnim, and then, according to Rabbi Eliezer, he would put on his big day lavan, his white garments, go back into the Kodesh HaKadosh and remove the kaf v'machta from the incense. He would then, with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim, in his golden garments, he would offer the korban musafs, the 7 sheep, the par ha'ola, the sarah naisa b'chutz. Those were all offered with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that with the Talmud Shel Shachar, he would offer the 7 sheep, and we're going to see that further gets broken up in the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. But the first way we understood Rabbi Akiva is that he offers his 7 sheep with the Talmud Shel Shachar, along with the Par Ha'ola, because those are korban musafs, and musafs are generally offered with the Talmud Shel Shachar. Then he does the Avodah L'fnai V'Lefnim. After doing the Avodah L'fnai V'Lefnim, he changes into his big day Zahav, and at that point he offers the Soira Naisa B'chutz, as well as the Olas of Olas Ha'am, as well as the Emure Par V'Soyer. He then changes into his white garments, removes the kaf v'machta from the Kodesh HaKodashim, and then the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. We said, what's the machlokus between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Eliezer says that we want to dafka go in the order that the psukim are written in the Torah. First, you do the avodah of Parshas Achremos and Sefer Vayikra, and then you do the Musafin later on, which is in Sefer Bamidbar, which is why Rabbi Eliezer, his opinion is that you do all the korban musafs with the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim later on. Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that the pasuk says Milvad Olas Havoka Shel Olas Hatamid, that in general we always do the korban musaf with the Talmud Shel Shachar. Therefore, Yom Kippur is no exception. However, on Yom Kippur, the Sarah Naisa B'chutz, however, would be done after the Avodas L'fnai V'Lefnim, since we have a pasuk to say that it was offered in addition to the Avodah of Yom Kippur, so therefore it comes right after that. We then saw a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon that they argue about actually how Rabbi Akiva's opinion works out. According to Rabbi Yehuda, actually with the Talmud Shel Shachar, you would only offer one of the 7 sheep, and then he would do the Avodah L'fnai V'Lefnim, and afterwards he would offer the remaining 6 sheep with the korban Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. This is because we just want him to do 1 sheep and then move on to Avodah L'fnai V'Lefnim, so that he doesn't get tired out by offering 6 sheep right off the bat before he's even started the Avodah Yom Kippur. According to Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, he says no, offer 6, because once already you're getting started, just do as much as you can. In terms of getting tired on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol is not getting tired because he's got a lot of what's that called? Oh gosh, what's the word when you I don't know. Yeah, you like have a lot of energy when you're doing something. I don't know, like when you go on a roller coaster or whatever it is. What's that word? I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember. Anyways, yeah, that was really the daf. At the end, we also had this machlokes between Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon about how many rams are there on Yom Kippur. Rebbe says that there is one. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says that there are two. Let me just think about that word for a second. Yeah, I can't remember it. Have an awesome day. Cheers.